In front of us today is one of the other rewards for Festival of the Lost. That is actually the kinetic auto rifle Horror Story. Yes, I know it's a reissued of a reissued weapon. Look, we can get into a huge debate about recycling inside of Destiny 2. I'd just like to point out, Bungie has perfected it, man. They've done well. Today, though, guys, we're going to be testing out what I deem to be a pretty good roll. I would actually say a god roll on this 450 round per minute auto rifle. By the way, if you have not seen our review yet of the Braytech auto rifle, feel free to check that one out. We did break down all the new perks and traits on that one. And again, that's the thing about this auto rifle, as well as Braytech. They've been reissued to us, but with new perk combinations. So big shout out here to Shock for landing this roll right here, because I was super curious to see how a very sticky, consistent roll could perform here. So on this particular roll, we have two options for scopes, rifle scope and clean shot. Rifle scope greatly boosts our zoom as well as our range, although again, with the bump there in zoom, it is a little more difficult to keep your reticle on target. And then there's something to say about Horror Story. This weapon has got like the weirdest reticle placement while shooting. It's like sometimes I feel like the reticle just doesn't go where I want it to go. And it's not recoil direction here, guys. Recoil direction is actually okay. I mean, sitting at 73, vertical enough, not that bad. It's just something about the reticle of this weapon seems difficult when it comes to tracking targets. Now, I feel like you can avoid a lot of this on controller, but it's still there. And again, this is something that plagued the original version of this weapon, Origin Story. I will say that on the low end, low zoom scopes, this is not that bad. So clean shot, I would actually swap between the both of these depending on the map. If it was a closer range map, go with clean shot. Longer range map, and I still want to use this 450, I would go with that higher scope. Now, it also comes with accurate rounds for that bump there in range. And the first trait on this weapon is firmly planted. Increase accuracy, stability, and handling when firing while crouch. Such a good trait. Something else to bring up about firmly planted, it maxes out your recoil direction, which is why it's so good on fusion rifles and pretty much any weapon you use, but especially weapons like an auto rifle. We actually reviewed just a blue auto rifle not that long ago, which also rose with firmly planted, and you got to see how powerful firmly planted is all on its own. But just to make things nastier, it's also being combined here with moving target. Now, something about moving target. Moving target gives you a passive bump there to target acquisition and aim assist. So even though we're not necessarily taking advantage of the movement speed, we are still able to take advantage of its increased aim assist. Also comes with a handling masterwork. Let's talk about it, guys. Was this the god roll? Well, breaking down the stats, it's a good roll. I mean, really. Moving target, firmly planted again, such a huge one for any weapon that shoots in full auto. After playing with this, I would say if you're looking for a consistent 450 roll, this is it. Again though, like the Braytech auto rifle, these weapons are just plagued with a bad time to kill value. I mean, 0.93 seconds, even though it does have forgiveness of 6 crits to body, at the end of the day, it's still 0.93 seconds. It also has one of the worst body shot time to kill values at 1.47. It's one thing to be good in your body shot TTK value and bad in your optimal TTK value. It's another thing to be bad in both. And that's what affects 450s right now. They're bad in both. And that's something no other archetype in the game does. Like, Bungie has made it a point to make it either super optimal, less forgiving, or increases lethality in its body shot TTK value, but make it less optimal, giving us more range of options here to choose whether we want more forgiveness or not. 450s by design are just not in a good place. Now, whether or not they're going to get a buff, I don't know. We don't know, man. I will say though, playing with this roll being the most consistent roll, I think I either still prefer the curated roll or just another 450. Again, if you're looking for a 450 to carry you inside of Crucible, I don't think Horror Story's it, guys. It doesn't feel good. Braytech feels good. Like, Braytech feels solid. I think it has good management in its recoil. I think its ability to track targets is also really good. Roll-wise, I mean, it's got some other consistent rolls that can match it to Horror Story, but firmly planted moving target is a deadly combination that should turn any auto rifle into an auto-aiming machine. Horror Story here still bucked. And that's the thing about auto rifles. That's kind of like the testing gauge that I give these weapons. It's like, how much buck do they give me when I'm using them? Especially with a roll like firmly planted moving target, that thing should be broke. It shouldn't buck one bit. And yet, Horror Story here was still bucking. So the way I look at Horror Story is this is going to be gauged more for PvE than for PvP, which actually takes us to some rolls that you should look for PvE. And I've actually got some pretty good rolls myself. I think Osmosis is always a great perk for burn activities. You can even pair something like Osmosis Outlaw or even Osmosis Subsistence whatever direction you want to go. Demolitionist. I've actually got a Demolitionist Outlaw role. Extremely disgusting. Look, you can't go wrong with Demo. Whatever you're doing, whether it's PvP or PvE. But take this past season with things like Oppressive Darkness. And again, I don't even know what's going to change with artifact mods next season. Grenades are nasty. Hands down. And so the more grenades you have, especially considering your build, Demolitionist is always a play. Another perk to consider is Sympathetic Arsenal. Although I do prefer Sympathetic Arsenal on other weapon types, most notably bows. So I would treat this weapon more as a PvE weapon first, before ever considering it for PvP. I also want to bring up that scope-wise, I found that the scopes that I was using, even Clean Shot, didn't feel that good. I would go with the more medium-level scopes. Red Dot 2 MOA, Red Dot Micro. Again, the Red Dot Micro is what's actually on the curated roll. What's such a big shame is that the curated traits aren't present in its random rolls. I would much rather a Rampage Subsistence roll together with, say, something like TacMac or even Zim Moment moving target. Unfortunately, these traits were not dropped into the random roll portions, same as like Braytech. And actually, Braytech had rolls like an Outlaw Kill Clip roll that you could get last year that you can't even get this year. So Bungie actually went out of their way and removed some trait combinations in here, which is quite a shame. Now, I know we didn't bring up Killing Wind. A lot of people are going to ask, why not Killing Wind? Phantom blows grant increased mobility, weapon range, handling. That sounds like a pretty good trait, and it is. Many weapons, I would say, benefit from Killing Wind. But considering that Firmly Planet, all on its own, couldn't handle this weapon's inconsistency, Killing Wind, it doesn't have a chance either. Again, we reviewed a basic blue auto rifle called Medley with no major traits outside of Firmly Planet, and you got to see firsthand how nasty Firmly Planet is on an auto rifle. It should be more than enough to handle this weapon, maxing out its consistency, pretty much making it cheese to use. In this situation though, Horror Story to me is just too inconsistent. Now, I'm a firm believer that at any moment, Bungie could go out of their way and readjust a weapon specifically. I doubt Horror Story is on their list of weapons to readjust, but maybe. Let's be optimistic here. Everyone said Arc Logic sucked at launch, and it did. Had terrible muzzle flash. Bungie makes a change, boom. Arc Logic is suddenly one of the best 600s in the game. A role that I would consider on Horror Story, if it suddenly got that funky recoil under control, and subsequently also got its consistency boosted, is actually a Killing Wind Slideways combination. That to me is a fantastic run and gun combo. Killing Wind for that boost there in mobility, weapon range, and handling. Slideways for the boost there in stability and handling when sliding, as well as the auto reloading portion that happens when you slide. I would actually consider that, or even Killing Wind Snapshot, or even Killing Wind Moving Target. Like I said, all these options would be great options. We're just waiting on Bungie to actually make a move on 450s. If they do, Sandbox patch notes should be out at some point within the next week, or patch note previews. So guys, that is Horror Story. Again, treat it more as a PvE role. Unfortunately, perks like Rampage and Zim Moment are not present in its random rolls, which is a huge bummer. But hands down, take advantage of Demolitionist, Osmosis, combine them with some of these auto-loading features like Subsistence, or quick reload perks like Outlaw, and you'll be cooking. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.